Tell me if this is familiar.
You set up your tents in the Svalich Wood, only a stone's throw away from Lake Zarovich.
He just made a video about attacking resting players.
We're 6th level. I mean, you know, how bad can it be?
That's not exactly inspired, is it? Let's see what happens next. 10 wolves come out of the woods. Roll initiative.
Oh my god, 10 of them?
Okay, I mean, I can just cast Fireball.
Well, this is about to be a big waste of everyone's time, especially because Cicero, the wizard,
Is about to roll a 6 on initiative. The wolves go first, fail to down anyone, and then they all blow up. It won't matter what they get on their saves, and even if they manage to survive, they'll all be down next turn. And when the players finish their rest, or start it over, and regain those spell slots and hit points, then all that's happened is that we wasted precious time answering an obvious question. Will our heroes die horribly to random wolves? It turned out the answer was no. That kind of sucks. And if you're running random encounters like that, you might conclude that random encounters kind of suck. They have little to no bearing on the story, and it's not like these wolves had loot or coins or foreshadowing or anything, really. They're just wolves. So let's make a new random encounter table. A random table of inspiring encounters. Welcome to Mystic Arts, where the rules are made up and the plot points don't matter. My name is Daði. I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for over 10 years. In this video, I'm going to talk about this table from Barovia and show you how you could make your own version of it, or your own version of a table for your own game. But our table won't be quantitative. It'll be inspiring. Basically, our table won't include a specific number of wolves. It'll be up to the DM to decide exactly what happens. But it's the job of the entry to inspire the DM. Make the DM excited to run the encounter. No matter the pacing of your session, it should always be fun. As an example, instead of saying 3d6 wolves, our entry will just say wolf pack. But the entry will read, a wolf pack circles the camp and charges the characters if they think they can take them on. Each of the beasts bears the signed mark of Strahd on their paws, indicating his control over the beasts. The pack consists mostly of wolves, but there might be some dire wolves or a werewolf pack leader. If the party is particularly high level, consider adding a dire warg. Alternatively, they might find a single wounded wolf pup. A character could, with a successful DC 18 animal handling check, spend a ration to endear the wolf to themselves. This might lead to the wolf becoming a sidekick. Now, the table is inspiring. I read that entry and I could think it's time to charge them with wolves, or some tough wolves, or I might think, we just did a random wolf encounter, let's hit them with a wounded wolf pup. All of those ideas are in the same encounter. So why did I do it like that? Why not tell the DM exactly how many wolves there are and what else there is and etc.? Well, I have a beef. Here's my beef. Random encounters are by definition random, and random is by definition kind of meaningless. You might then conclude Daði likes to author his encounters. There is no randomness in his games. No, actually. If I'm authoring every encounter, I don't believe in my world. I like the feeling of peeking into a little box where we keep our secondary world and seeing what's going on in there. But if I decide all the things, then everything is arbitrary. So rolling on a table makes it feel more real. Like the world is telling me what happens next. I get to find out. Only then, I'm kind of screwed, aren't I? On one hand, randomness is meaningless, and on the other hand, decisions are arbitrary. What then are we to do? Give up? Skip random encounters entirely? They're no fun anyway. No, that's obviously not the solution. Here's what I propose. Do both. I don't mean do a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I mean do both at the same time. Your table should create randomized and authored content. Although, actually, brief sidebar. You could approach it as two separate pillars that you swap between, pivoting between fully authored content and fully generated content. It can still satisfyingly blend together the feeling of your world being vast and deep. It can still make your table feel like you're creating a meaningful story together. On day one of your character's long journey, you decide that you want to foreshadow that revenant from the random encounter table. So you leave some revenant clues on the campsite.
Clues? Clues? What kind of clues?
I don't know. Footprints, maybe, where one foot has a chain attached, dragging behind. Something ominous that won't mean anything on its own, but when they see the Revenant with a broken chain attached to his foot, it'll come together and the party will realize the setup. That sort of scene is cool, but there's no randomness. It's completely authored, but it's not really gameplay. It's just a part of your adventure's overall setup. Then, on day 2, you might roll the random encounter table and let the dice decide the character's fate. That sounds good to me. You can roll on the encounter table some days and then other days decide what encounter the characters are getting because you're wanting to do setup. But then will the player's immersion be affected if some encounters are preceded by you rolling dice behind the screen and others aren't? I mean, you can roll the dice during those setup foreshadowing encounters and just ignore the result. That's technically fudging the dice, but I've said my piece on that. So how do you do a random encounter table that's both authored and random? How can you make a table that both works as setup and as gameplay? I've got 2 tricks for you. 1, you leave in the gaps. And 2, each encounter is many encounters. In preparation, you create a random encounter table full of details and awesome content. Every entry in here should excite you. And if you leave something boring in there, then inevitably you'll roll the boring result. The solution is no boring results, but you deliberately design the entire table to be full of holes and variants, and you don't systematize it. You leave all the variants in there. You just recognize them to be options for the DM. And then you trust the DM, your future self, to know what version of the encounter to use in a given moment. Your future self is going to be a better judge of what pacing is best at any given moment, whereas your prep self is the better judge of what the world needs to have in it. This process of thinking of yourselves as 2 people, prep DM and running DM, is kind of amazing. It's like having a collaborator in the 4th dimension. When you're prepping the tables, you trust running DM, and when you're in the middle of a session and you're not sure about your lore or whatever, you can trust the prep DM. But both partners must work together on the document, on the inspiring encounter table. I do the same as a filmmaker and YouTuber. Talking head Daði trusts script Daði and script editor AB, while trusting in the cutting room Daði and cutting room AB. Each part of your brain is like its own innie. You gotta trust the one in the zone. Let's circle back to those random encounter tables from Barovia. It looks like this. All fairly solid stuff. It's about as good as you'd expect, right? It's using 2 dice, a d12 and a d20. So there is a nice bell curve, and there's added randomness with each monster entry. See, there's not 10 wolves, there's 3d6 wolves. Very neat, much random. There's also several entries that aren't combat encounters. It just says grave or trinket or hunting trap. And further down those pages, there's more. So on grave, it says, you stumble upon an old grave. Oh, evocative read-aloud text? It says there's a 25% chance that the grave is intact, appearing as an elongated earthen mound or rocky cairn. Characters who dig up the grave find the skeletal remains of a human clad in rusted chainmail, a soldier. Among the bones lie corroded weapons. If the grave isn't intact, it's been violated. The characters find a shallow, mud-filled hole with dirt or rocks strewn around it, and a few scattered bones within. Okay, so there's a grave and there might be some rusted equipment, if the players are lucky. This is a bummer. Not really much of an encounter. There isn't anything here. Even this is just a time waster. What if it could be fun instead? Here's what we're gonna do. Every encounter is a theme. It's a vibe, like the wolf pack. Who knows exactly what's in the wolf pack? It could be 6 wolves, a pair of dire wolves or a werewolf, or just a pair of wolves or a single werewolf, or a wounded pup. It's meant to serve as inspiration or as a prompt. Trekeros made a video about exactly that. You can create entries that you know you can use under any circumstances. They will inspire you. And you do that by not being restrictive. Restriction hems in creativity. By leaving the specifics open, you create space for the imagination to take the idea and run with it. You create space for creativity. If you're deathly afraid of freezing up in the moment, you could bake in a release lever to your encounter. Basically, stick 3d6 wolves in there just sort of as a safeguard. But I suggest you don't. I'll suggest you get used to being surprised and learning this new skill of adapting to change. It'll make you better at running the game. So you make each encounter a theme, and then you write in 3 things. 1, what's the meat and potatoes of the encounter? Well, in our case, wolves. 2, what's the special variations for the encounter? We wrote down dire wolves, werewolves, dire wargs, All good options, all fun variations. 3. What's the non-combat option? We wrote down a wounded pup, but it could have been wolf tracks leading back to a lair, or a dead wolf killed by another beast on the table. That's up to you. So if we wanted to make our own version of the Barovia table, it might look a little bit more like this. You'll notice it's a lot shorter and a lot less rigorous, and it wouldn't really be complete without entries outlining each result with meat and potatoes, special variations, and a non-combat option. I have that full table available on the Patreon. But for illustrative purposes, this will do. I could put undead on here. It might be ghosts or zombies or skeletons. The blights entry could include those needle blights, vine blights, or a Golthias blight. The good guys are on the top end of the chart. I added clerics and the Vistani on there. The big nasties are on the bottom. And you can see I just straight up put Strahd on the chart. Hey, they say in the adventure Strahd comes after you. There he is. Maybe he invites us for dinner. Or maybe he's here to steal Irina. It depends on your mood, on pacing, and the overall vibe at the table. On 7, which is the likeliest result on 2d6, it just says loot. In there, we could give the hunting trap, grave, and trinket the corpse, and with them, we'll attach a runoff table. And each entry there we'll make sure has a little bit of gameplay in it. It's not enough to roll for a grave and find some rusted armor, because that's not a game. It involves no informed choices, no investigation, nothing. You just roll on a table and happen upon rusty equipment. We'll change the entry to be a bit more like this. The party comes upon an intact grave, appearing as an elongated earthen mound or a rocky cairn. Characters who dig up the grave find the skeletal remains of a human clad in rusted chainmail. So far, the same. Characters who succeed on a DC 15 investigation check find an additional item. Either a map pointing to a nearby dungeon, or letters from a nearby villain, a single object that hasn't rusted at all, a magic item, or a full coin purse. It's not a huge change, but suddenly now we're talking. It's a load of options, and they're bound to inspire you at the table. If you can think of a map or letters, use that. If not, make it be a single magic item, not a major one, something uncommon, a wand or a locket, an expendable one, I don't know. And failing that, there's coins. Something to reward curious characters in good rolls. Hell, you could do more than one option, or all 3. Tables like this aren't complicated, they're not insane or anything, but they're inspiring to run. When I see them, I'm happy to think of what comes next. It feels like playing yes and with my prep, with prep DM, right? Inevitably, the players will yes and me while I'm yes anding my prep, and then we'll be playing an RPG, a game where nobody knows what's going to happen next. But we haven't resigned ourselves to randomness. It's lightly controlled chaos, which honestly, isn't that what an RPG is all about? You'll also notice I changed the table to 2d6. It was perfectly fine as a d12 and a d8. I wanted fewer options, so I shrunk it. But then why not just use percentages or a d20? Well, those are 2 questions. Let's start with why not a d20? Or in general, why a single die isn't ideal for this. A d20, or any single die, is as likely to get one result as any other. A 20 may feel amazing because it's a critical hit, but a die getting exactly a natural 20 is just as likely as getting exactly a 12 or a 4. The only reason the 20 feels special is because we've decided it is. The more dice you roll, the more likely you are to get the average result, because more possible results equal the average. Another way to think of it is that rolling a d12 and rolling 2d6 produce wildly different odds. Yes, they can both roll a 12, but the odds on 2d6 can be expressed on the bell curve, whereas a d12 is flat. Bob Worldbuilder has a video on exactly this concept. I'll link it below. It's a good follow-up to this one. But in short, I want a table that has this range, where it's 16% odds that we get loot, and it's just under 3% odds we get Strahd. You might then think, why not just use a D100 and make the percentiles whatever you like this? Well, I could. You're right. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't do that. Why not? Because I want my tools to do my job for me. Sitting down and writing a D100 table is a lot of groundwork. It requires thinking from scratch. It takes time. But 2d6 tells me the odds I'm working with right off the bat. Filling it out only takes a minute, and the odds are baked in. It's a sleeker design, and it requires much less thought. It's like when you're sawing wood, right? You make the motion, and the saw be steady and smooth, and it does the work for you. No need to brute force anything. Same with creative tools. Use them to make your work easier. Because the easier your job is, the more fun it is to do, and the more work you can do with less time, which means your players will enjoy it more. It's a win-win-win. What's great about the random table of inspiring encounters is that at no point do you stop being the author of your game. When you're rolling on the table, you have to do a bit of authoring to put it in front of your players. And crucially, when the players get to react to it, you continue to author the experience together. Because, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think if your random table is too rigorous, you're actively constraining creativity. Before you get your pitchforks, let me say this. A TTRPG is that thing that is being created at the table, actively by everyone. It's an aura or a vibe. It's kind of this nebulous mood that's in the room.
Fugazi, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's not real.
When you stop everything to throw 10 wolves, you kill that mood and force it to become something else because a random table told you to. Maybe it'll be good, but I think the best person to make that call is you, an attentive DM who listens to their players, not to the table they had to roll on. So with an inspiring table, you'll get all the benefits of a random table. It'll tell you what to do, but it does so without robbing the room of its mood. You can feel what the table needs next, and then put that in front of your players to serve them, because that's what you're doing as a DM, serving your players. And to that end, don't be afraid to change the interpretation. The table is meant to inspire, not dictate. So if you read it and you feel like you want to change something, do it. Trust the vibe. That is all to say, I think there's a lot of value in generative play, that style of game where you roll on tables and let the players loose on the world. You then yes and your way through a campaign as your players explore the world. It's my favorite way of playing the game. Dungeon crawls, hex crawls, and random tables are amazing. And our next video is all about hex crawls, so stay tuned for that. Of course, you don't always have to roll for things. You can just add an encounter on the road. I do that all the time. Sometimes I know that it's time for me to finally reintroduce a plot hook or something, so I just do it. You're the DM, you're allowed to do that. Controlling when the travel encounter shows up is no different than deciding to roll for one, or deciding to put a supremely tempting quest hook in front of the players. It's all the same, and you can do that stuff whenever. As long as you make sure to differentiate between when you're doing setup and when you're doing gameplay, and you get out of your players' way when they're playing the game, you're all good. Just make shit up. That's it. It's simple advice, really. Take a list like the one from Barovia, make each entry less rigorous and less quantitative, but more inspiring and more like a tool set you can assemble fun encounters from. Do all the prep work, but none of the planning. Then trust yourself to DM those moments appropriately when they come up. You'll be loving random encounters in no time. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend. And if you want to support us directly, consider joining our Patreon, where this month, anyone backing the Adept tier will get our Hexploration rules. If you want spoilers for next week's video, the Hexcrawl rules are up on the Patreon right now, and anyone of the Adept tier has access to the whole supplement backlog, like the firearm rules and the Warlord class. If you want to elevate your travel encounters even more, consider watching our videos on running encounters each day and our video on homebrew rules. You'll find the excursion resting rules we talked about in those two videos will help you loads with that. If you're feeling especially generous, you might like this video, comment, share, or subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.